able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, first answer that question regarding the tax problem. Just give me a second. Let the slide open. I think I have circulated those notes or those PPTs with you. This was the problem. I think this was the solution for that particular problem. From where did this 20,000 come into picture?
Not this one, sir. The next one. Yeah, this one, sir.
Okay. I think it was. I thought this is the one, right? 20,000.
Yes, sir. No, not this. Next problem. Yes, sir. Sir, in this question, it's given that employer contribution 3,30,000. But in the answer, you have put that employees' contribution as 3,30,000.
Okay, just a minute. I'll just check it. Just check it.
Payment of PF. Yeah, yes, sir.
Interest on PF, payment of PF. Okay, why I have made this particular entry is the question, right?
No, sir, in the question it's given employer's contribution, but in the answer it's employee's contribution it is written.
Uh, just
It should be 4,30,000, no, sir. Employees.
no. Do one thing. Just add this to
Yes, sir.
3,30,000 plus 3,30,000. How much does it come? 6,60,000.
Yes, sir.
I think something is wrong. I'll just check it. I thought I was under the impression this. Yes. I did not get the book also today. Anyway, I'll just clarify it. Just give me some time. I'll clarify. Today itself, I'll clarify.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's some mistake here. Anyway, I'll clarify it. Fine.
Okay, sir.
So we'll start with the next unit as far as investment management is concerned. And this unit is basically talks about that the main objective of investment is to earn a return, and when you are earning this particular return, you have to consider a certain amount of risk that is associated. So that is the reason this particular model we call it as risk and return, the two sides of an investment coin. If you want higher returns, you should expect higher risk. At the same time, when you are ready to take higher risk, you will also get good returns. So this is what is the combination as far as the risk return ratio, or we also call it as risk return trade off. Okay. So we'll try to understand what this concept means, how does it come into picture. So basically what we are trying to understand in this particular module, I'll just give the outline of this particular module. Here we are going to try to understand what are the different ways by which we can calculate the return, what are the different ways by which we can estimate the risk, and then how to equate these two is what we are going to discuss. Is that clear? So in this particular case, whatever I just told you is that investors always assume a certain amount of risk to earn a return. See, when you don't want to earn any extra return, the best thing is you invest your money into fixed deposits in the bank and just keep quiet with 7 or 8% of return that you get annually. On the other hand, if you are ready to take a certain amount of risk with you, if you are ready to bear a certain amount of risk level with you, and you are ready to sacrifice a certain amount of time also with you, in such case, it is always better that you look for different investment opportunities. And one such investment opportunity is wherein you can uh, expose yourself to a certain higher level of risk by which you can expect a certain moderate level of return, right? Now, returns can be categorized under different heads. Returns are basically categorized as interest that you receive on deposits that you keep. It could be deposits on the bank. In the fixed deposit that you keep, you get interest on that. If you keep a deposit in companies, you get company deposit interest. We call it as debentures or debenture interest. Then you can also get income in the form of dividends. Generally, or listed companies pay dividends, whenever they earn profits, and this dividend that is being paid is also nothing but it's a form of a return for the investor. Next, we have some capital gains. In other ways, if I'm, what you can say, if I'm holding some shares and if I'm selling those shares, right? So I purchase shares for probably 50 rupees. I'm selling the same share for probably 500 rupees. So what is my capital gain? It is 500 minus 50. So 450 rupees is my capital gain. So these are the different ways by which you can expect returns to be generated when you make an investment. But at the same time, if you are ready to take these amount of returns, you should also be ready to take a certain amount of risk that is associated with each of these instruments. In financial terms, we always measure risk in terms of probability, okay, because risk is always forecasted for the future, and whenever we talk about future, probability is going to come into picture. I think probability is one that you have always studied in your statistics. So some concepts of that particular probability, particularly the Bayes theorem, is what we are going to estimate or use here to estimate the forecasted risk. Next point is risk and return are directly proportional. In other words, the higher risk you take, the higher returns you can expect, or the higher returns, if you are expecting higher returns, then you should be ready to take a certain considerable amount of risk along with it. So this decision as to what is the level of risk that you can take and what is the level of return that you can expect, somewhere you have to balance. And this balance point is called, what we call in financial terms, we call it by the word trade-off. So there has to be a trade-off between risk and return, and based on that, your decisions are going to be based on. Now, when it comes to return, why people expect return is because that is the main motivating force for any investment. Just tell me, if I give you an offer that you deposit with me 10,000 rupees right now, and after 5 years I will give you same 10,000 rupees back. If I tell you this, will you ever come and give me your 10,000 rupees? You will never do it, for the simple reason there is no motivation force for you, because after 5 years you are going to get the same amount, that is 10,000 that you gave me. So when will people be ready to give you money? Only when you are sure, or only when you expect a certain higher level of return than what you are currently getting. Only then that becomes a motivation force for an investment. Okay. Now, the second criteria of investment is the longer you keep your money in an investment avenue, the more return you can expect. At the same time, the risk involved also is more. The longer the time you keep your investment, the more risky the asset tries to become. That is the reason whenever you take a loan, whenever a personal loan is been given, they always see to it that the loan is not more than 3 years, because the longer duration the loan is given, the more chance of you defaulting on that loan happens. So if you start defaulting on a loan, the bank is facing a risk. In such case, banks always prefer personal loans to be given for a shorter duration of time and asset loans being given for a longer duration of time. Next, we have to understand that there are three major factors when we come to returns. First is, whenever we talk about returns, we always have to understand that there is a presumed level of risk that is going to be involved. Next, whenever we invest, we need to see that our returns that we generate from this particular investment avenues is more than the inflation that is prevailing in the market. Say for example, if I am investing 100 rupees, the inflation level in the country is 4%, 4.5 to let us say 5%, right? The inflation level is 5%. You are investing 100 rupees, and at the end of 2 years, you are going to get a return of 5%. Does it have any value? You are earning 5% in terms of returns, but you are giving the same 5% in terms of inflation. So does it make sense? Can you claim that you have really earned some return? On paper you might have earned, but on practical basis you have not earned anything, for the simple reason, whatever money you earned in the form of an interest or in the form of a return from an investment, that entire amount has gone because of inflation. So whenever you invest your money, you need to take into account, first aspect is risk, second aspect is the return that you earn should always be higher than the inflation level in that particular country. Only when this thing is satisfied, then we call it that it is worth the investment. Next is duration of the investment. Always remember, the longer you keep your investment, the more time you give for that investment to grow. At the same time, the if you keep an asset for without being used for a longer period of time, which means there is a time value factor, the value of that particular asset starts depreciating at a very rapid rate. So all these things have to be taken into consideration whenever you make a return decision. For our calculation purpose, returns are classified on two heads. First head we call it as the current return, and the second head we call it as a capital return. When you add both of them, we get a concept called as the total return. I repeat once again, whenever you get an income only for a small period of time, we call it as a current return. Whenever you get a return by selling off your assets at a higher price than your purchase price, that is what we call as the capital return. And when you add current return and capital return, the answer that you get, we call it by the name as total return. Okay, so any doubts up to this particular point? Any doubts up to this particular point?
No, sir.
Okay. Next we come to, there are various methods by which we can calculate returns. Okay, and we are trying right now, we are trying to understand a very simple form of calculating return, that is, how do we estimate a concept called as current return. How do we estimate a concept called as the current return? So whenever we are talking about current return, we are talking about a fixed time interval. Say for example, from 1st April 2019 to 31st March 2020, in this particular financial year, what is the return that I am going to get? Okay, only in this particular year, if I want to know what is the return that I am going to get, the formula is in front of you. Okay, you can easily use that particular formula and come to a conclusion as to what could be my return. I'll just give you an example. Say for example, you are holding shares of a company called, let us say, Maruti Suzuki. Okay, you're holding shares of a company called as Maruti Suzuki, and that particular company has declared a dividend of has declared a dividend of, let us say, 40%. You're getting it, what I'm trying to tell you. Maruti Suzuki, you are owning shares of Maruti Suzuki. The company has declared a dividend of 40%. Okay. Now 40% on what? 40% on the face value of the share. Okay. If you are not able to get these things properly, I'll just give you some example here so that things are easy for you to understand. Okay, let us say that you have a company and that company probably you have purchased the share of that particular company, let us say for 200 rupees. Okay, you have purchased the share of that particular company for 200 rupees. You have kept the share with you for 1 year, and let us say at the end of 1 year, the company has declared a dividend, okay, of let us say 50 rupees. So what is my cash received? It is 50 rupees divided by what is the price that I paid? 200 rupees. Are you able to get the logic here? So if I have to do 50
Explain once again.
50 divided by 200, what is the answer that I get? So are you there?
So 1/4. 1/4.
1/4 means how much?
So 25%.
25%. So what is my current return? My current return is 25%. Getting it? Are you able to understand what I'm doing here? I'm helping
Yes,
you
sir.
arrive at a concept called as how do we estimate current return. Current return means that particular return which you earn because you are holding that particular asset for that particular time frame. In that time frame, the company has paid you something. Okay. Murali, take one example. Let us say that you have purchased the share of a company worth 300 rupees. One share of the company is 300 rupees. And that company has given a dividend of, let us say, 90 rupees. I repeat, Murali, you have purchased a share of a company called, you have purchased a share of a company for 300 rupees. The company has paid a dividend of 90 rupees. You are holding the share for 1 year. Can you tell me what is your current return?
So 30%.
30%. How do you get it?
So 90 divided by 300 into 100.
90 divided by 300 into
100.
100. How much does it come to?
So 30.
Sure?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So 90 divided by 30, it is 9. It becomes 9 by 30. Murali, I think it's wrong. Just check it once again.
So 90 divided by 300.
90 divided by 300. Okay. 1 by
In,
9.
into 100.
3 by 10, right? You get 3 by 10.
So I'm doing it on calculator.
Do it. Divided by 300. 30%, correct.
So 30%, sir.
So 30% becomes your return. Are you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Getting it? Okay. Now please understand this meaning of this. What is current return? Current return is nothing but it's a measure of the periodic income in relation to the beginning price. So what are you doing? You are estimating what is your return when it comes to with reference to the beginning price. That is the reason beginning price is always on your denominator. So against this price that I have paid, how much money have I received? If you want to know, you have to calculate current return. Okay. Next point is current return can be 0 or positive, but it cannot be negative. Okay. Have you ever seen any company giving a negative dividend? The least dividend that any company can give is 0. But have you ever seen any company giving a negative dividend?
No, sir.
It doesn't happen. See, dividend is paid by the company to the shareholders. Now, in such case, if the company, have you ever seen any company saying that we do not have profits this year. Instead of we paying dividends to you, you pay us dividends. Has any company said like this? It has never happened. So in other words, current return can be minimum it can be 0, and it has to be a positive value. Current returns cannot be a negative value. That means your numerator will never be a negative value. It always has to be a positive value, or it can be a 0 value, nothing less than 0. Okay, so examples of current return are nothing but interest that you receive and the dividend that you receive in that particular year. So that is how we estimate the current return. Clear? Now next we have capital return. Mrinali, I will stick with you. You have purchased a share for 300 rupees. Probably you have purchased the share last year. Today the price of that particular share has gone to 500 rupees. Okay, today the share has gone to 500 rupees. Can you tell me what is your
Yes,
capital
sir.
return using this particular formula, that is formula equation number 2? Can you tell me what is your capital return?
So beginning, so what was the share?
At what price did you, beginning price is,
So
what
500.
price did you purchase the share? 300.
So 500. 300. Okay.
300 is the beginning price. You purchased it, right? So whatever is your
Yes,
purchase
sir.
price is your beginning price.
Yes, sir.
Whatever is your purchase price, that becomes its a beginning price. And whatever price you sold it, that becomes your ending price. So you purchase the share for 300 rupees. You have sold the share for 500 rupees. My question is, can you tell me what is your capital return?
So 1 minute.
So it's going to be 500 minus 300 divided by
300 divided by 300. So 66.66.
66.66.
66.
Okay, so your
So I have
capital,
multiplied it by 100. So you should multiply it by 100 or no?
if you multiply it by 100, you will get in percentage. That's it.
Percentage. Yes, sir.
So somewhere around
So it's,
66% is your return.
yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this is one situation. Murali, you calculate again. You purchase the share for 300 rupees. Something terribly
Yes, sir.
went wrong with the company. The price of that particular share, instead of going up, it has come to 250 rupees. Can you tell me what is your capital return?
Yes, sir. So it's minus 16%.
How did you do it?
So 250 minus 300 divided by 300
Correct.
into
You
100.
got a negative return of 16%.
Yes,
That
sir.
means you, instead of getting a capital return, you had a capital loss.
Loss.
You had a capital loss. Okay. Read the second point. It can be 0, it can be positive, it can be negative also. Clear? So when your price went to 500 rupees, you had got a positive return. When the price went to 250 rupees, you got a negative return. Let us see when you get a 0 return. Suppose you purchase the share for 300 rupees. Okay. You want to sell the share, the price is still 300 rupees. So ending price is 300, beginning price is 300. Okay. So your numerator actually becomes 0 and your denominator becomes 300. What happens to the answer? The answer
So
becomes 0.
0. Yes, sir.
Getting it, Murali?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, for simplicity's sake, if I add equation number 1 and if I add equation number 2, what is equation number 1? Equation number 1 is your current return. This is equation number 1. And what is equation number 2? This is your equation number 2. So if I add equation 1 and equation 2, what do I get? I get something called as the total return. How do I estimate total return? It is current return plus price at the end minus price at the beginning, the whole divided by price at the beginning. When you do this, you get a total return. Are you able to get the logic here?
Yes, sir.
Mrinali, you calculate. You purchase the share for 300 rupees. You purchase the share for 300 rupees. You sold the share for 400 rupees. During this time, the company paid a dividend. The company paid a dividend of 60 rupees. Calculate total return. I repeat, ending price 400, beginning price 300.
So 1 minute, sir. I'm not able to hear you properly.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I said beginning price is 300, ending price is 400. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Current that is C value is 60 rupees, 60.
Yes, sir.
Can you calculate what is total return?
Yes, sir. One. So it's around 53%.
So 53%, sir.
0.53 into 100.
Around 53% is your return. So equation number
Yes,
3
sir.
is nothing but a combination of equation number 2 plus equation number 1. To combine this, whatever answer that you get, that is equal. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
The next measure that we have for return calculation is a concept called as return relative. Okay, return relative. That means it gives an absolute figure. It cannot have negative values. Please understand one thing. So return relative is a figure that is given with an absolute positive values. It cannot have negative values. Point number 1. Second, this measure is used to estimate cumulative wealth index and geometric mean. Clear? This particular technique is used to calculate cumulative wealth index and a geometric mean. How do you calculate return relative? There are two ways in which you can do it. Okay. First is you estimate what is your current return plus the ending price, the whole divided by beginning price. This is one technique to do return relative, or else whatever total return that you have got. Okay, I think you have got somewhere around 53%.
Yes,
last
sir.
term that you calculated.
Yes, sir.
So 53% is the total return. If I ask you, Mrinali, can you calculate return relative? What will you do? You will just add 1 to it. So 1 plus 53% becomes your return relative. In other words, 1.53% is the return relative figure for you.
So 1 plus 53%.
1 plus 53%.
So then it will be
53% can be
54.
written
No?
as 0.53. So 1.53 becomes the answer.
Yes, sir.
So here your answer is 1 as it is, plus what's your return, total return? It is 53%.
0.53.
53% as 0.53,
Yes, sir.
right? So if I divide
Yes, sir.
what is my return value? It becomes 1.53.
1.53.
So this is how I use my return relative measure. Again, this technique is used only to when you are calculating cumulative wealth index and geometric mean. Getting it?
Yes, sir.
Next, we have a technique to calculate returns when it comes to cumulative wealth index. Okay. Now, it is used to indicate the level of wealth index over a period of time. Okay. It is used to ascertain cumulative effect of total returns. Okay. When I say you have invested your money in say a company called Havels India Limited, and every year this company has paid a certain amount of dividend. Probably in the first year it paid 10%, second year it paid 20%, third year it paid 14%, fifth year it paid around 25%, sixth year it did not pay anything, seventh year it paid you something, eighth year again it paid you around 30%. So here the values have kept on changing. Now, if I want to estimate what is the overall return that I have got or overall wealth that I have generated by investing my money into Havels India Limited, how do I do it? I have to use the formula as cumulative wealth index. Yeah. So cumulative wealth index is nothing but WI stands for weight of that particular index. R1, R2, R3 are nothing but the returns that you have got in subsequent years. Suppose first year I did not get anything. My answer is going to be R is going to be 0. In the second year, my R is going to be
Excuse me, sir.
12%. So my R is going
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, your sound is not audible.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So cumulative wealth index is nothing but it is an indicator to know the level of wealth. Okay. Over a period of time, how much wealth have you accumulated or how much wealth have you earned from an investment? If you want to know this, you have to definitely use a concept called as cumulative wealth index. Okay. And the formula to arrive at cumulative wealth index is given to you. It is CWI, okay, is equal to WI, that is weighted index, into 1 plus R1 plus 1 plus R2 up to 1 plus Rn. Okay, so for n number of years that you are holding, you can keep on doing this particular calculations, and accordingly you will be able to understand how much of cumulative wealth has been generated by your investments. I think all are familiar with this type of a measurement, arithmetic mean.
Yes, sir.
What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it do? So basically, arithmetic mean is nothing but the average. I repeat, arithmetic mean means what? Mean means average, right?
Yes, sir.
Mean means average, right? So here, what we are doing, we are taking a total of all the returns and we are dividing it by the number of observations.
Number of you.
I think whatever you studied in your statistics first semester, first module, first or probably second module, you studied something called as mean, median, and mode, right?
Yes, sir.
What does mean indicate? Mean indicates average. What does median
Yes, sir.
indicate? What does
So
median
the
indicate?
middle
Mid value, so
It
value.
indicates a mid value. And what does mode
Okay.
indicate?
yes, sir.
What does mode indicate? Mode indicates the highest value.
Preceding,
Yes, Rohin. What does mode indicate, Rohin? Mode indicates the highest value in that particular frequency, right? So here we are least bothered about median, we are least bothered about mode, but we are more worried about the average that we are going to earn, right? So the average value is very important for us because that tells us as to what is the overall return that we are going to expect by keeping money in that particular investment avenue. Clear? So for our calculation purpose, arithmetic mean is a very important calculation and we are going to use this particular technique on frequent basis. Next, we have the geometric mean. Please understand one thing, start making a note of all the formulas now because the formulas will keep on increasing as we go forward. Of course, they are there in the slide, but it is always better for you to keep a record of it. Okay. Arithmetic mean is nothing but summation of all the values divided by the number of observations. Geometric mean is, this is what we have to understand. How do we calculate geometric mean? Okay, so it is a measure of average compounding growth over a period of time. Okay, and geometric mean is always lesser than arithmetic mean due to distribution patterns. Okay, now what is a distribution pattern? Please observe my hand. Suppose on a graph which is upward sloping, that means it is going from a smaller end to a lower end, from a smaller value to a higher value. If the line is straight, then arithmetic mean and geometric mean both are same. Why? Because the line is same. On the other hand, if I have pattern like this, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, but overall if you see, the growth is in the upward direction, but that movement is there. So if you want to know how much have you lost and how much have you gained because of this momentum, you cannot do this by the concept called as arithmetic mean. For that you have to understand what is geometric mean. So geometric mean is nothing but it's a measure of the compounding growth over a period of time, and geometric mean is always lesser than arithmetic mean. Okay, why is it always lesser? Because there is some concept called as the standard deviation that is associated with the geometric mean. So what is standard deviation? How does it come into picture? All these things we will see in the later classes. What I try to do right now is I just introduced to three main concepts: risk, return, and trade-off. These are the three important simple words that we have to understand in this particular problem, and the ways in which we can solve problems on this particular aspect. Okay, so in my next class I will continue from where I had stopped. Okay, I will continue from geometric mean, and then we'll go forward with the next part that are available as far as your syllabus is concerned. Is that clear? So we'll stop the class here, and I'll see you in the next class.
Yes, sir. So do we have the next class?
Yeah, I think MB Patil sir is expected to take. MB Patil sir may take.
Yes, sir.